Hi Smith family, it's me, Kiki. Unfortunately, I can't be at reunion with you guys this year because I work on Saturdays, but I've been tasked by the reunion committee, my Aunt Delphine and my Grandma Karen, to help out with the family history even from afar. For those of you who don't know me, I am the daughter of Tynika Strayhorn Lytle, the granddaughter of Karen Strayhorn, and the great-granddaughter of Austin Chick Smith and Minnie Smith. So, growing up, family history was one of my favorite parts of reunion. I've always felt like it was amazing that we know our history, that we've been able to trace our lineage so far back. I feel like a lot of people aren't able to do that, and that isn't something that we should take for granted or something that we should take lightly. Also, in feeling that way, I feel like you guys just don't want to sit here and listen to me talk about stuff that we've heard year after year. Probably not 39 years, but for a very long time now, there has been a succinct family history put together that has become a very integral part of what we do at reunion. So I feel like since next year is 40 years, we should all pretty much know the story of Luke and Melissa Smith. Am I right? So I'd like to introduce you guys to the Smith Family History Quiz Show. Okay, so as we all know, we are descendants of Luke and Melissa Smith. So your very first question is, what was the name of the slave owner who brought Luke? Your second question is, what is the area that the slave owner took him to? What area in North Carolina did he come to? And your third question is, since Luke was 12 or 13 years old when he came to Pollocksville, what was the reason that the master decided to take Luke with him? So, if your answers are Richard Oldfield, White Oak, Maysville, and as a companion to his son, you are absolutely correct. Okay, so one thing that was said about the Oldfields is that they were very mean to their slaves. And because they were mean to them, they endured some very, very hard beatings, especially Luke. And so, since Luke endured all these hard beatings, what was something that Luke did very often? That's your next question. Luke and Melissa were allowed to jump the broom. And to that union, how many children were born? And as stated previously, Luke endured some really bad beatings. Luke was very strong-willed, and the master would always try to break that will and break that zeal that he had. I call it the Smith resiliency. No matter what happened, Luke just knew that he was not going to do what. So if your answers are Luke would often run away, Luke and Melissa had 8 children, and he said, I will not die a slave, you are correct. The master used to beat Luke very, very bad, but he said that he was born a slave, but he was not going to die a slave, and Luke meant it. So, it was said that Luke would run away at the drop of a hat, but because he was such a great worker, they would always go out and try to find him. But one day, Luke endured a very bad beating. And with this beating, your first question is, how long did they say Luke hid for? Your next question is, Luke would normally sneak back to see his family and go back to hiding. When would he normally come back to see his family? And your third question is, the master became so desperate for Luke's help that he told Melissa what? If your answers are, he stayed hidden for a month, He used to return home in the wee hours of the morning. And if he ever returns, there will be no more beatings. You are correct. So, as we know in the family history, one of the most important times, one of the favorite times of the slaves was Christmas. So, every Christmas, I want you guys to say on one accord, what were the 3 things that the slaves always got for Christmas? All right? With one of those ingredients they received, they always made this special food. What was it? All right, so Luke was, they were in slavery. He didn't like it, and he thought that it was wrong that he couldn't own, any animals, and he wanted to get his own what? What were the animals that Luke wanted to get? All right, so if you said flour, fatback meat, and blackstrap molasses, you were correct, and it was 5 pounds of flour they would get. If your answer was biscuits, then you are correct. And if your last answer was Luke wanted to get himself some pigs, you are right. So Luke got these pigs. We don't know how Luke got these pigs, but he got them. Like I told y'all, that Smith resiliency is something, boy. When we put our minds to it, we're determined to do it. So someone found out Luke had pigs, and they told the master. When the master found Luke and his pigs hiding in the woods, what did Richard Oldfield say to Luke? By this point, Luke was fed up. So the Civil War was going on, and Luke had heard that if he could escape to where, he would be free. Your last question for this part is, so during this time of trying to escape to freedom, what is the name of the river that Luke and his family crossed that they were scared to cross because at times the water came up so high to their noses? So, the master told Luke, you cannot own property. You are property, and property can't own property. If you answer Fort Totten and New Bern, you're correct. And the White Oak River was the name of the river that they crossed to get to New Bern. You are right. Okay, so Luke and Melissa and their children, they were able to cross that White Oak River and get to New Bern. But when they got there, there were 2 very important things that Luke did when they crossed that river and made it across safely. And so I want you guys to tell me, what were the 2 things that they did? If your answers were, he dropped to his knees and thanked God, you're right. And he changed his last name to Smith, you are correct. So Luke is an example of not only a resilient man, but also a very God-fearing man. He knew that it was nothing but the Lord that was able to get their family across and out of slavery the way that God carried them through. So earlier we talked about Luke and Melissa having 8 children. The names of one of those children was named Anthony. So Anthony married Lucy Lofton, and to that union, how many children were born? So we know that a substantial amount of children from that union, 12 to be exact, tragically lost their lives in a fire. So that left 2 children remaining. One of the 2, he tragically passed in a swimming accident. So that only left 1 more child. What was the name of the remaining child? And this child that remained, he had how many children? He married Hattie Willie and had how many? And then she passed and he married Hortense Garrison and had how many? And that was a total of blank. I know that last one was kind of confusing, but here we go. If you said Anthony had 14 children, you were correct. If the one remaining child you named was Alexander Smith or Papa Ellick, you were correct. And if your total number of children that Papa had was 9, you are correct. So, all of us that are here today, we are descendants of Alexander Smith or Papa Ellick. That's what connects us. Papa Ellick was a very good man, a very mild-mannered man. He loved to read the newspapers and periodicals, and he always kept up with all the things around him. I wonder if you guys know why we choose to gather in August. And from what I've been told, Papa Ellick passed in August. Well, he passed on August 14th in 1976, and it was said that it was such a shame that the only time the family got together was during sad occasions like funerals. And so from, I guess, that next year on, they decided that we would come together to honor Papa Ellick's legacy at a family reunion. And back then, it used to be the third weekend of August that we would have our reunions, but then due to scheduling and kids going back to school, we hence moved it up to the first weekend in August. So, you guys should never take for granted the reason that we come together. We are a resilient family. We are a God-fearing family. We are a family that loves one another. And so it is my prayer that you guys learned some things today, that you guys had some fun, and that the Lord keeps us all until next year at our 40th reunion, where I hope to see you all and people that haven't been in years. So I love you. Have a great weekend. Bye.